Now imagine this, how awesome is it that not only are we getting a spin-off to Supernatural, which is gonna be building up on the next season and starting next year, but also Season 9 is gonna be starting a week earlier on October 8th instead of October 15th, and that is just awesome. But we're not here to talk about that, are we? We're here to talk about more on the lore of the Supernatural world, and with that, let's get started. First off, let me start by saying that I'm really sorry. I apologize because last week I was really busy and I wasn't able to release the video as I originally scheduled. It was supposed to come out last Thursday, and then it was supposed to come out this Tuesday, and it was just a mess. I was just really busy. But of course, my priority always resides on my videos, and I really want to bring you guys content that I enjoy making as well as content that you guys enjoy watching. So I apologize very, very much for that. It's a little bittersweet and kind of appropriate, I think, only because I have, as many of you guys have known, of course, you've heard many news from the Supernatural cast and crew from Comic-Con as far as what's going to happen for the next season and spin-offs that are going to happen in the future. So it's very exciting for all of us, and especially, I mean, me as a fan, I'm really, really excited. So it really gets me pumped up to even put more effort into these videos and bring you guys some quality content. So I want to give you guys my usual disclaimer in terms of reminding you, I've already done a couple of videos, one on the angels and one on the demons. None of those videos have contained spoilers so far, neither does this one. I want to make sure that whoever's watching this, whoever hasn't watched Supernatural before and they're just kind of catching this video out of complete randomness, or just want to hear me saying something, I guess. I'm not going to be talking about any spoilers related to what has happened from Seasons 1 all the way up to the current Season 8, which just ended this spring. I want to make sure that you guys know that this video is going to be completely spoiler-free. I'm only going to be talking about a specific creature in the Supernatural world. It's going to be only the lore, the origin, how the society works, what their powers are, what their weaknesses are. No spoilers whatsoever, so feel free to watch if you haven't seen the series at all. Since I was already talking about angels and demons, I guess I might as well start with that. Basically, we know that in the very beginning, we had heaven and hell. We had a location where angels resided as well as where demons were trapped. And of course, in the middle, we have the human world. We also have another location that we briefly talked about last time, and I'm talking about Purgatory. I also talked briefly about how God created a species called the Leviathans. And among those Leviathans, we have a creature that was known as the Mother of All, and she is the progenitor of all of the supernatural beings that exist in the world of the humans. I'm talking about vampires, shapeshifters, djinns, and all of those. At some point, we know that God created humans and put them on Earth. We also know that the Mother of All created specific creatures to infect humans, and those creatures were considered to be her children. We know them as alphas of each respective species. So how did these creatures or monsters came to be? For example, we have, let's take for example vampires. We know that the Mother of All created an alpha vampire. The alpha vampire then is able to infect a human being to turn it into a vampire. That vampire in turn will turn other humans. We also know that alphas are much more powerful than the rest of the species. They're also able to share a connection with the entire race as the father of its own species, which allows the alpha to communicate and to locate all of their children telepathically. Now you might be wondering, why would the Mother of All do something like this? Why would she create a new species? Why would she infect humanity? And the reason lies in the fact that she resides in Purgatory, a realm that's outside of anything else, of the mortal realm, of heaven and hell. She resides there, and she gains power by attaining the souls of those that have been destroyed. We know that when a monster infects another human, their soul becomes corrupted, similar to how it's corrupted when it turns into a demon. The same thing, however, it turns into something new. The soul becomes something that's not human, is neither an angel nor a demon, so it doesn't go into heaven or hell. When it dies, it goes into Purgatory. Due to that, we have somewhat of a strict, if not sensitive balance of how many souls go into heaven, into hell, and into purgatory upon death. Now let's talk a little bit about the specifics of the actual species that have been created by the Mother of All. We already talked a little bit about the vampires, so let's start with those. A vampire is created when a human ingests vampire blood. However, the transformation is not complete until the newly formed vampire feeds on human blood. We know that vampires in terms of society, they like to live in packs. They live in specific locations hidden from society that are called nests. Once a vampire dies, of course, as I mentioned, the soul goes into purgatory. The same as any other species, the vampires have their own alpha. The alpha vampire can communicate with any vampire telepathically. They can perceive where he is. He can feel with each vampire when each pack of vampires is located via psychic connection or telepathically. We don't get to see that many vampires in Supernatural. We do know that in that particular time period, vampires have been hunted so much and so intensively that they have become a rare species. And at some point they were thought to have been extinct, but of course that's not the case. We know that in secrecy the alpha vampire and other vampire pack leaders have been attempting to procreate their own species, increase their numbers, and become more prominent in the current society. Vampires, of course, when infected, they have to ingest human blood in order to turn completely into a vampire, which means that there is a chance that you can cure them if they haven't drank human blood yet. In terms of their abilities and their powers, we know that vampires have extremely enhanced senses, pretty much animal-like, that allows them to smell humans at a distance. They can see them from very far away and long distances, and they have the ability to see in pitch black darkness. In order to feed, they have sharp, very pointed retractable teeth that they emerge from their gums when they're going to feed, and they extend above their regular human teeth. That's how they're able to feed onto other humans. Of course, we also know that so long as a vampire continues to feed, they are immortal and they are unchanging, meaning that they do not age. They can also infect others by feeding them with their own blood, so they can turn into vampires themselves. If they have enough human blood, if they drink enough of it, they can even heal their own injuries, except for amputation. If they lose a limb, that doesn't grow itself. But if they happen to be mildly injured, they can always drink enough human blood in order to heal themselves. As far as weaknesses, though, we know that sunlight does affect them. It's not deadly by any means, but it can cause sunburn if they're exposed too long to it. And because of that, they do prefer to sleep during the day and remain active at night. We also know that because a vampire must feed on a living human being, if they happen to drink a dead man's blood in large quantities, it can paralyze a vampire and it can cause the wounds to be slower to heal. It acts somewhat of a poison. It won't kill them, but it does weaken them significantly. Also, decapitation. We know that if a vampire is beheaded, they will die instantly. Also, they have this feeling of bloodlust, as I mentioned before. So a vampire has this never-ending craving to feed on human blood. Sometimes, as I said, they can feed on animal blood if they have to in order to survive. But it has been stated that it is needed for them to live. Even though we have never seen a vampire starve to death, we know that it's possible. We also know there's a certain form of ash that prevents vampires from detecting you via smell. In this case, we're talking about saffron. If saffron is burned and turned into ash, you can dust your own clothes with ash from saffron in order to stand a chance of not being detected by a vampire. Now let's move to another species, another type of creature. We have the Shapeshifters, which are known for being able to change their physical appearance, their form, into any other person that they wish to. So they can change to appear as any person that's living, death, or that is fictional. The process is not exactly seamless, it's kind of painful. They do have to shed pretty much their entire exterior form in order to transform into someone else, so usually that includes shedding their teeth and their skin and their nails in order to change their form into another person. We also know that certain shapeshifters change in terms of their abilities. For example, the alpha shapeshifter is particularly powerful. It's the progenitor of all other shapeshifters, and we know that it can shift into any other appearance almost instantaneously without having to shed anything or having to get rid of its clothes. It's kind of impressive. In terms of powers and abilities, we know that, of course, shapeshifters are able to take on the physical appearance of any person. If the person happens to be living, they are able to not only take the physical appearance of that person, but they're also able to access their thoughts, their feelings, their memories that person has, that whatever person they're mimicking. If we're talking about someone that's either deceased or someone that's a fictional character, for example, a character that's on a film, a movie, just by watching the movie or by watching a picture, they are able to transform into that person. In terms of reproduction, we know that in order to continue their own species, shapeshifters are not particularly able to infect other humans. What they do is that they procreate with human women. They impregnate them in order so that their children become shapeshifters themselves and continuing their own species. And as far as weaknesses goes, we know that a silver bullet through the heart will kill them. Also, in the form of a blade, if you happen to stab them in the heart with a silver blade, that will kill them as well. They're vulnerable to an element called iridium, and also decapitation, same as vampires. They're particularly difficult to deal with, for hunters in particular, because they look exactly the same as a normal human, so they're not able to tell them apart from ordinary humans. What hunters tend to do is that they can identify a shapeshifter if they are filmed on video. You see that there's a retinal flare that appears on video, and that's how you can tell them apart from other humans. We're gonna go over a couple more species, so I'm gonna talk about the Djinn. The Djinn are creatures that are humanoid in appearance, and they have tattooed skin all over their bodies, and they prefer to live in large ruins with a lot of places where they tend to hide. Now, Djinns are similar to vampires in the fact that they feed on human blood, but it's a little bit different in terms that instead of just drinking their blood, they poison their victims with their own powers. What it does is that it causes reality-altering hallucinations for the person, which can be used to either put the human into a trance or to kill them quickly, depending on what the Djinn wants to do. And also, if they want to feed on a human for a longer period of time, they can put them into that kind of comatose state in order to preserve the body and be able to feed on them for longer periods of time. Djinns on the show are more similarly related to what we know as genies, more or less. They are a little bit different in terms of lore. What they're able to do is that they can read a person's mind to learn what their deepest desires are. The Djinn doesn't actually grant you the wishes that you desire, just like the regular genies. Instead, what they do is that they send the person into a trance, a fantasy universe where they can live all of their desires into a dreamlike state. While they experience this fantasy, the Djinn is able to drink their blood and feed on them. The process is very slow. The fantasy, as they experience it, the body dies very slowly as the Djinn feeds on them. It can take sometimes several days until the person finally gives out. Time passes very slowly when on that dreamlike state, so sometimes it feels like you're experiencing a lifetime, when in reality it's only been a few days. As far as powers go, as I said, they can poison you by simply touching you. That poison causes hallucinations, as I mentioned, and in the meantime, the Djinn takes control over all of your emotions, all of your feelings, all of your experiences, while it feeds on you. Eventually, of course, that will cause you to die. And as far as weaknesses, you do have to kill them with a silver blade that has been soaked in lamb's blood. That's the only way that we know of to kill a Djinn. The Skinwalkers are humans that can completely transform into canines, similar to how werewolves are, but in this case, the mutation of a Skinwalker is complete and is not limited to, for example, the faces of the moon, just like werewolves are. They can infect others via their saliva, by biting someone, and they feed by eating the hearts of their victims. Skinwalkers are worth mentioning because they have a similar society, when compared to vampires, they too tend to live in packs, similar to the way that canines live. We know that the alpha skinwalker was, of course, the very first skinwalker that was made, children of the mother of all. And we have never seen it, but he does direct the actions of all the numerous packs, similar to how the alpha vampire works. Same way. The way that they operate is that instead of attacking a human directly, just like, by being confrontational, what they do is that they do a more of a covert ops operation. They tend to infiltrate into families as their pets by taking a dog form, and eventually they bite their victims to convert the entire family into skinwalkers and increase the size of their own pack. As I mentioned, their powers, they're able to transform into canines at any point, which serves as kind of an alter ego. They don't rely on the moon or anything, they can transform at any time. They also have, as canines, they have a superior sense of smell. Even when they're in human form, they can still smell at very far away distances from the presence of any human that they're looking for. And as far as weaknesses, same thing, we have silver. If you pierce a skinwalker's heart with a silver bullet or a silver blade, that will kill it. When they die in canine form, it's interesting to know that they revert back to the human form. Of course, we know that there's a lot more species in the supernatural world, but there's just so many that the show has shown us that it's pretty much impossible for me to go over all of them in one episode. But the ones that I mentioned, the 4 that I talked about, are the main ones that are pretty much constantly present across the seasons. Those are the ones whose alphas has been referred to on the show. So it's important to know, where these species are, where they come from, how the society works, and what they are in general. So I think with that covers, creatures in general, monsters. I think I'm gonna call it an episode for today. I'm gonna continue on next Tuesday with the next species. I think you guys are gonna like it. It's I have planned for this to be 6 episodes long. So I'm gonna touch a little bit over all of the species. Hopefully once you finish watching all of the series, you have a better understanding of the supernatural mythos in general, and how the species work and everything. That's kind of my goal here. At the same time, I'm informing myself, I'm informing everybody. So I think it's a win-win. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please give me a like if you liked it. Please give me a comment if maybe there's something I missed. I'm always, it's a learning experience for me too. So whatever you guys want to teach me, I'm all ears. I'm always welcome to any insight that you guys have. And also please subscribe if you want to see more. As I said, thank you guys for watching, and as always, enjoy.